Hi, I'm Benedict Rogers, the co-founder and chair of Hong Kong Watch. And as we gather today in solidarity with Hong Kong and in memory of the beginnings of this new movement that started a year ago against the extradition bill, I want to start by saying to Hong Kongers everywhere these simple words: 光復香港時代革命. As we think back to the events a year ago, and we remember those inspiring scenes of 1 million people taking to the streets peacefully to protest against the extradition bill, and then a week later, 2 million people taking to the streets, despite police brutality, despite tear gas and pepper spray and rubber bullets and batons and people being beaten. And throughout those summer months, we saw Hong Kongers bravely, continuously making their voice heard, and they inspired the world. None of us would have imagined a year ago where we would end up, but over the course of the last year, we've seen the most horrific police brutality. No police officer has been held to account for their totally disproportionate, indiscriminate, abhorrent violence. The Hong Kong government refuses to hold an independent inquiry into police brutality. And then we've seen the arrest of 15 of the most prominent pro-democracy politicians, most respected internationally. And finally, we've seen the imposition by Beijing through the National People's Congress of the national security law that will totally decimate Hong Kong's freedoms, rule of law, and autonomy. It will drive a spoke through one country, two systems. It's a flagrant breach of international law and an international agreement, the Sino-British Joint Declaration. And if it goes through, it will be the demise of Hong Kong's way of life, basic freedoms, and autonomy. And so we must do everything we possibly can to fight this. I and my colleagues in Hong Kong Watch have been working around the clock in recent weeks to mobilize the world to speak out against this. And with some success, we've mobilized almost 1,000 parliamentarians in more than 40 countries to speak out for Hong Kong. We have had an impact, I think, on British government policy. We've seen the Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab announce a very welcome offer to British national overseas passport holders and speak out in much stronger terms about the flagrant breach of the Sino-British Joint Declaration. But there's so much more we need to do. We need to urge the United Nations to speak out and ideally to create a UN special rapporteur to monitor human rights in Hong Kong, especially if the security law goes through. We need to encourage governments around the world to coordinate with each other, to have a lifeboat rescue policy, to help those particularly vulnerable frontline Hong Kong pro-democracy activists who aren't BNOs, but who will be very vulnerable under the national security law and who may need a place of sanctuary. We need to coordinate as an international community how we're going to help them. We need to coordinate Magnitsky-style targeted sanctions, not just from individual countries, but in sync together, so that we can have maximum impact on those in the central government in Beijing, the Hong Kong government, the Hong Kong police force, who should be sanctioned, and many other things that we need to do and that we're working on. So I want to say to Hong Kongers that as you face this biggest crisis in your modern history, and as we look back over the last year, I salute the extraordinary courage, determination, persistence, good humour, and remarkable bravery of Hong Kong people who have stood up, who spoke out so clearly in the district council elections last December, delivering a clear message for democracy, and who I know, if given the chance, will do the same in the LegCo elections in September. I wish we could be meeting as we did a year ago in a rally in Parliament Square. I spoke at that rally, and in fact I arrived later at that rally only because I was watching events in Hong Kong on my phone so much that I wasn't concentrating, and I got on the wrong train and went in the wrong direction. And Hong Kong today is clearly going in very much the wrong direction, and we need to do everything we can to help mobilize the world to help Hong Kong get back on the right path to restore Hong Kong's freedoms and autonomy. In that speech in Parliament Square a year ago, I paid tribute to the people of Hong Kong, the mothers of Hong Kong, and the sense of humour of the people of Hong Kong, and I continue to salute you. I wish we could be gathering today in another rally where I could get really fired up on a platform, and it's more difficult to get fired up on a video message, but I am fired up. I'm fired up for this fight. I'm fired up for defending Hong Kong, the city I love, the city that I began my working life in, the city where I lived for 5 years, the first 5 years after the handover. And I hope that we are all fired up to continue this fight, which will be tough. And I don't have to face the risks that Hong Kongers have to face, but I want you to know that you don't face them alone, that the world is with you, that I and my team in Hong Kong Watch are with you. And I simply end by saying two things. Once again, 光復香港時代革命, and I even managed to write it here. As you may know, I've been practicing my characters regularly, and this is what I've written for you today. 光復香港時代革命. And I end by simply saying, 加油.